Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Evolving Democracy. This is episode 13. Today, we're going to be talking about waking up, which is a little bit different than we talked about the woke previously. This is how we're noticing people are shifting, moving, growing, evolving, hopefully getting smarter and more heart-centered. That's our bias. Anyway, I'm Christy Johnson. I'm here with my good friend Joni Miller, and we're going to talk today about how we're moving towards something better. It's an unknown. We don't know how things are going to land and finalize themselves, but we also are very hopeful that we're going to have a better future based on what we're seeing with the people that are waking up. And so that's what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, and so waking up, we've seen shifts in polling, and the shifts may not be, it may be more subtle than we think. Because if you think about the polling, that there's five spectrums. There's support, there's strongly support, neutral of some sort,
Opposed, strongly
oppose,
opposed.
and strongly opposed. So the shifts, we often think about, okay, we got to take these people who are strongly support and move them somewhere else. But no, that's not, it's not fruitful. It doesn't work that way real well. But if we move people from oppose to strongly oppose, then they're more likely to take action in some way. And if we're like strongly oppose the regime, they're more likely to vote. They're more likely to talk about issues with other people. And if you get people from this neutral place to oppose, then the same thing, that it becomes a ripple effect, that there's more people moving in the direction that we want to see. And even going from support to what have I gotten into is positive, because that person may not vote, may not support what they previously supported.
And I think the whole section in that center of, I'm neutral, I don't know, like our landscaper saying a lot of his people don't know who to vote for. Those people can be probably captured, to use a word that may be a little strong, but can be influenced and moved to shift a little bit. And all that little bit of shift can really add up to something. I'm continuing to read Ben Wickler's book, This is the Plan, and he talks about these tiny margins in some races. And so when we say, oh, my vote doesn't matter, if you compare your vote to millions of people, it may not matter. But if you compare your vote to a small margin where, 401 people made a difference, 401 people is not that many. So you are voting in this mass, but that's the delta that really matters. And if people start to understand that, oh, actually what I do does matter,
Mhm.
then they can feel more moved, more empowered, more motivated to go do something, and particularly to speak up and say, this is where I'm at. Hey, neighbor. Hey, friend. Hey, family member. What are you thinking about all this stuff? Because that way we can build this momentum, build this movement, hopefully shifting everybody toward a better future. This is so much what we're about. That this present is agonizing. That's how this conversation started this week. We meet before we come here. We met on a Tuesday or Wednesday this week, and we're like, there's so much going on. Where's the good stuff? Then the good stuff, we concluded, is people waking up.
Yeah. And if you think about waking up in general, that if you personally, you're in your bed, and there are possible ways that we can get woken up. One is with an alarm clock, which is jarring. And so that's one extreme. The other extreme is just this gentle, natural waking up with the sun, and it helps your system more. And that jarring waking up sometimes happens with people when there's been a line that's been crossed too far. But we're also seeing the sense of things piling up and piling up and piling up. And that's more of the gentle waking up, until you look around and go, oh, I see the world differently than I did before. My eyes are open where I was asleep before.
Yes, and I think there's some element in here of choice. Choice and no choice comes up a lot in the work that I do. When we feel like we don't have a choice, we feel trapped and so on. And so, setting your alarm clock is a choice. I want to get up at a certain time. At least you've chosen that jarring wake up, but you have to be somewhere or whatever. It's the part where it's a rude awakening that we tend to like less. But sometimes those rude awakenings also bring us to making a different choice in terms of what we do with our behavior, what we do with what we speak, what we say, what we consume in terms of news. I read a bunch of leaving MAGA profiles yesterday, just trying to get a sense of like, is there some common themes? Is there some sort of way that those people that are in the far end of the spectrum move towards the middle? And there were a number of things that were remarkable to me, but one of them was how they got their news. And
Mm.
if you're going along getting your news a certain way, what makes you decide, I think maybe I'll diversify a little bit and listen to something else? That's making a choice. One of our viewers says, "Hey, you're twins." We were laughing about that too. Like we do not coordinate our outfits, and we both were like, "Oh, look what you're wearing." Neither of us went to change. Yes, we are twins today. Don't know what we'll wear next week. But anyway, the moving toward something new. I mean, that's that curiosity piece of like, well, I wonder what this station is saying about these things. Maybe I can get a more balanced view if I look somewhere else and don't just simply go along with the same thing that I'm doing. So I think my sense is, and I'd love to hear what your take is. My sense is a lot of MAG people are consuming a lot of news. It's just not fact based.
Right. And that is a uh, big stumbling block because there's been some research that shows that if you take that news source away from someone and have them diversify, they they open up to new perspectives. But then after that research was over, where they were paid to watch other things, they would go back to what they did before. And the the repetition, there's reasons why this works. There's repetitions of phrases, there's repetitions of demonization, so that it becomes this sense that, the Biden crime family, and that is gets seared into your brain. And this has been done throughout history
Of
when you want
course.
to demonize the others. And
Humans.
I'm thinking about Rwanda in the 1990s because they called the opposing, I think it was the Tutsis were the smaller group. I can't remember. Don't get on me if I'm wrong about that. But the majority group called the other group cockroaches. And it was on the airwaves, it was over the radio that these are cockroaches. And what do you do with cockroaches? You squash them. Except my husband, he doesn't kill bugs. But um,
Which is a whole nother story.
yeah.
It's been told elsewhere, folks.
But there is this sense of if you get away from repetition, saying the same thing all the time, saying it in the same way, having the same script, then you can see the world a little differently. And sometimes it takes just a little crack to wonder, maybe there's something more that I hadn't seen before.
And that's coming to light here too with people in the MAGA sphere, where so much America first, Trump will never take us to war. So the whole Iran war is creating this big splintering within MAGA. And so when we start having cognitive dissonance, two things that don't jive, it becomes, well, what's real? Like, is what he said real, or is this real, or how do I bring that information together? And while that internal brain thing can be uncomfortable, it also can lead us to, again, diversifying, opening ourselves up to, is that really true? A lot of the MAGA things that I read yesterday were where they went, wait a minute, something here doesn't seem right, like doesn't seem consistent, internally consistent. And so they then were open to the possibility of something being new.
Well, and I want to talk about spheres of influence because where we are now, we're highly unlikely to be influencing people who are supportive or very supportive of he who shall not be named. But we can, if we bring people from up the scale to from opposed to strongly opposed, like I said before, and it's within the people that we associate with. Now, I think back to my dissertation research where I interviewed conservative Christian counseling students who were wrestling with the responsibility to provide services to LGBTQ clients. And the people who were open to thinking about it differently, it usually happened because there was one element of commonality in the person that they were talking to, whether it was someone at their church who saw things a different way, or whether it was a professor who was open to their spirituality, open to their religiousness instead of saying, that's crazy, who had this element of curiosity about, okay, what are you thinking about? Talk to me about what's going on. So there's that element of commonality, so that it doesn't have to be completely the same, but if we have a point of reference that someone can say, you are like me in some way, then we have a much greater incidence of being able to share our point of view and not have it immediately rejected.
And I saw quite a bit of that in the MAGA, the former MAGA people that I was reading about yesterday. And one of the perfect examples was something similar, where they had to work with some gay and lesbian folks for some reason, and they got to see their humanity. And they were like, they're good children. They were good to their children, and they were like, this was sort of a wake up call to them because they've been so demonized. They were so used to othering them. By the way, we're getting tons of lovely comments, a link to a media bias chart talking about how we're stuck in our ruts with media and so on. I mean, there was plenty of participation, which we always appreciate. Thank you so much. But the commonality piece tends to get lost, I think, when we do make some generalizations and categorize and put people in the bucket over here. And then we try our best, the proverbial we, to go la 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 la. I'm not looking. I don't want to see that there is some shared humanity there. That whole cockroach thing is the perfect example. How can you relate to someone if you think they're a cockroach? There's just not much there. I mean, you could, but cockroaches are really resilient and they've survived for millennia. I mean, but seriously, it's just so harsh. But when we remember that we all come from the same source, that we all have red blood, no matter what color our skin, like there's just so much more we have in common than separates us. And the fact that we're getting hammered by all the awful things that are going on, I think that brings in some commonality as well. This common sense of like, oh, this is hard. Where you are, no matter where you are on the spectrum right now, unless you're totally have your head in the sand, you probably don't feel that comfortable with what's going on. Either because of the conflict, there may be strife within your family, there may be things that are happening to you, losing SNAP benefits, for example. Here in Arizona, 440,000 people, I believe, is the number that have already lost SNAP benefits, and that's not even the worst of it yet. So as we collectively realize we don't want this. That's this waking up. It is not comfortable. It is worse than the alarm clock. It's the fire. It's the fire sensor going off and telling you must get out of the building. It is, it's intense. And I think that's part of why it's so lovely to come here once a week and go, all right, let's take a breath and let's, rally to keep going, because this scrambling they're doing is evidence that things are not going well for them.
Yeah, I saw something this morning from a former pastor that I sometimes read, and he was talking about how some people are waking up, but it's only because they are personally hurting. And his point was, well, so they didn't care about the immigrants being unjustly arrested and treated. He went through all these things that good Christians should care about. But I had a different opinion that, yeah, they may be waking up because it's personally hurting them, but they're waking up.
Right.
And it's an entry point into the other. It's the entry point to what Christy was saying, that LGBTQ people are not the demon. That there are that maybe there's that once you say, maybe I was wrong about this, that opens the door to other things that you might have also been wrong about. So it's an entry point. And I will take any entry point that we can get.
I am so like this really has me going, oh, because this pastor who is supposedly about love and compassion, former pastor, um, this is othering someone.
Yeah.
This is saying you should have been on board before. You're bad and wrong, rather than welcome. Yay. So happy you're here. Thank you. I'm so glad your heart is thawing and you're becoming one of the compassionate crew, if you will, who want to go forward and make a difference rather than shaming them, blaming them, ostracizing them, putting them on the side as uniquely bad people. We all have blind spots. We all do things that are regrettable. And hopefully there's room for us to allow us to embrace us being humans. If you were raised by someone that's really prejudiced, chances are good you've picked up some of that. Maybe you go the opposite way and you're like, I don't want to be like that person, but there's also a really good chance you've been indoctrinated. So
Mm-hmm.
making room for us to grow, to evolve, to be better, to move towards something that feels better for us. It's really interesting watching people shifting their perspectives. Our governor, Katie Hobbs, in Arizona, this is the first year, I don't know if it's forever, but it's certainly the first year in recent history where they actually have lieutenant governors that are going to run for the first time. So she had to pick what they're calling a running mate, and she picked a Republican. But he is a Republican in name only,
Mm.
basically. He's spoken out against Trump. He's really pro people. He's really a good human being. And I love that idea of being open to, this is a unique solution. Like, this is not, you have to do one certain thing in a certain way. It's what else can we do? And what could possibly bring unity? Although I saw someone on Facebook who's like, oh, couldn't she pick someone Democratic? I'm totally against it. I'm not going to support her now. Really? You're going to support the election denier instead?
Yeah.
Why would you do that? Like, that's no matter how this lieutenant governor guy would be, the election denier is 1,000 times worse. So I love when we can kind of put behind us the labels,
Mm-hmm.
the boxes, the othering, and go, what's possible if we open ourselves to something new.
And that brings up so many of the points we've talked about before: the being curious, being open, being growing more love. That this is a way of opening our hearts to something new, and not shutting people down by who they may have supported in the past, what they may have done in the past, but saying this is who they are now, and is who they are now someone I want to support. It drives me crazy when someone will say, well, you used to believe that and now you've changed your mind, so you're inconsistent. That's humanity, baby. That's how we grow and learn. If,
Right.
I often say, none of us shot forth from the womb with our current positions on anything. You have to grow, and the experiences that you have help you grow and hopefully move to a place where you're wiser and you have more compassion and love for yourself and love for others.
And that kind of dovetails backwards for me toward someone claiming, oh, I'll never take us to war, and then bringing us into the most regrettable war that cannot be backed out of. I mean, it is one thing to grow and evolve to become more compassionate, more loving, more caring, more open to good things. It's another thing to be inconsistent in going toward things that are not good. Just similarly with the Todd Blanche nomination of like, oh, they signed a letter, so now the senators are gonna sign off. This growing and evolving we're talking about is more loving and more open-hearted and not more willing to kowtow, more willing to do things for, pumping up our egos or whatever. This is really about being more connected with humanity and doing the things that feel good because it feels good to help others and it feels good to be part of a community that wants to help others versus wanting to demonize others. That just doesn't feel good.
Well, and I wouldn't consider someone who changed their position as growing necessarily. I fear growth as becoming wiser,
Well said.
becoming more attuned to other people and to the big picture and not your own self-interest, but in the highest good of all. That's what I view as evolution. We can all change our minds, but we don't all grow in wisdom.
And in a desire to be of service rather than self-service, rather than always putting it towards what we want, that we're the center of the universe and everything revolves around us. It's a very lonely position, actually, to be so self-focused that you're really alienated from everyone else. You really miss out on a lot of connection if you're not considering your fellow humans. But they're making these choices.
Well, and one of the comments was, help people move toward love and away from fear. And some of the things where people look inconsistent and change their mind, there seems to be a heavy dose of fear in that. Will I lose my Senate seat? Will I lose my prestige? Will I lose my government contracts? Will I lose my access to power? That's all fear-based. It's not love. It's not looking at the bigger picture and what is in the highest good of all. It's what is in what I consider my highest good, which is I want more money, I want more power, I want.
Right, versus we want. This more inclusive perspective really brings, first of all, it takes a lot of the edge off because that the I want is this like gripping, grabbing, I'm like desperate kind of energy versus what do we want? This is a more relaxed, dropping your shoulders, being present to others, listening to other people's stories. Where's our energy best directed? It has a gentleness to it. And it, one of our viewers said, I want higher poll numbers, which we're getting. That's part of why we're talking about these things today, because things are improving. We talked about Donovan McKinney here, I think, last week, who's the Michigan 13 candidate, who they spent 30x. The incumbent Democrat raised $30 million. He raised $1 million. He won. So it just feels so good that people are like, hey, the money's not nearly as important as something else, as what we care about, as what's important to us as fellow humans. This to me is hopeful. This to me is that waking up of, you know what? We were dormant. We sort of took things for granted. We're not doing that anymore. We're now saying, oh, something needs to change. And we're saying that collectively. It's not just one or
Mhm.
two voices. It's a lot of people saying, forget it. You spend 30x, but we don't want that anymore. We've had that incumbent. It didn't work for us. Let's move on. Next.
Well, and that collective waking up is this sense of what do I want, not just for me, but for my neighbors. And not just for my neighbors, but for my community, and on and on and on. So it's that heart opening. What do we want that helps the most people? And there used to, and I know I'm idealistic, but there used to be an element of that in government, that how can we help people? You go back to the New Deals, like how can we stop the elderly people from going through the trash to get enough
Garbage. Yes, to get a
to
meal.
eat? And that becomes this wave of possibility. How do we create a better society? How do we create a better world? And not just for my family, and not just for those close to me, but for those I see and for those I don't see. That there is, we thrive when the most people thrive. And I'm not just talking financially, but that's true, but just energetically, and that we can see the future, see the sky. So clean air doesn't just help us, it helps everyone. And we
To,
want that sense of possibility. And it's there. The more people wake up, the more they move from one category toward the one that is of more love. Every time that happens, it's a win.
And to me, that is the perfect encapsulation of American exceptionalism. Like when we are exceptionally kind, when we're exceptionally generous, when we are exceptionally motivated by helping others, I'm tearing up. Like this is where we become exceptional, not by dominating, not by being the richest, not by being the most greedy, but being the ones that are the most kind, the most loving, the most compassionate. How do we build that in ourselves, in our communities, in our country, in our world? That's where all this changes. I heard climate change compared to a war, and I it's like a war on our planet. I think it was Rebecca Solnit that said that. Yeah, we've got all these wars going on. How do we bring peace? Bring peace to at so many different levels. That's again where I think exceptionalism happens, not where we are creating a more and more of a hierarchy, and
Mm,
these high end people are getting all the spoils, and the other people are struggling. This is an opportunity to be exceptional, I think.
yeah. And create that new world that we want to see. Live up to the ideals that this country has never lived up to yet.
Yet, and the thing is that we see the discrepancy, and more people are seeing the discrepancy, and more people are saying, I'm not okay with the discrepancy. Like, this needs to change. We can't just say, well, it's always been like this. It's always been racist, or it's always been, okay, yes, and yes, but that this can be changed. Like, we have power. We the people, like Joanne Freeman talks about, we all the time. We, the people, have the power to say what we want, how we want it, what we want it to look like, what we want to create for our future. That this is in our hands.
And we can rally around even imperfect candidates. I think about the Democratic Michigan primary for Senate, whereas the the two people who, one dropped out ahead of time, but the other one who is heavily supported by the mainstream Democrats, came out right away and said, "We will support the candidate, the man who won. We will support, we will do everything that we can to make sure that Michigan has a Democratic senator." And yes, it was a rough campaign, but our differences don't matter as much as our similarities.
And our vision for
Yeah.
a different future. We've talked about this to some extent. The whole policy thing can really mire us down, like what people's individual policy perspectives are. But if you pan out and you look at what's their general sense of what they want to do to help people, are they oriented in a way that's helpful in general versus this one I don't really like, and this because of their one position over here, like How about we pan out and go, but yes, and we're not going to agree on everything. Just as we don't agree on everything anywhere, at work, at home, we have differences. This is part of what makes us this mosaic of who we are. How do we then rally forward for what's best, what's in the highest good of all concerned?
Right. And in the highest good, we can help wake up other people, those we can influence by sharing of our hearts, sharing what we believe in, sharing the future that we want to see, this future of inclusivity, this future of love. And with that, let's put that love into action together.
Together. Thanks for coming, everyone.
Bye.